Hi there and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at. A bombshell out of New York. Former President Trump indicted over alleged hush money payments.
Destructive winds and potential tornadoes, what you need to know about the severe weather moving in.
I don't understand how some of y'all sleep at night.
A city council debate turns profane and personal.
Now we're taking ownership. Yes, it is. It's a coffee smell, right?
Bringing new aromas into back of the yards as part of a major city development. We have a live report.
Could be your child.
That child was just walking down the street.
We introduce you to a local playwright who's using her art to help save missing and abducted girls.
1-0 Chicago on the base hit by Dansby Swanson.
And it's that time of the year. The Cubs win on opening day at Wrigley.
And Brandis and Paris, as you mentioned, I'm in the back of the yards community where I will be reporting live tonight as part of our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Now, there is a lot in store for this Southwest Side community, including a fresh $58 million development that is part of the Invest Southwest community program. We'll be telling you about the change that is coming to back of the yards and how area residents feel about it. But first, back to you.
All right, Amanda, we'll look forward to that. And now to our top story tonight. Former President Donald Trump, who is also seeking the Republican nomination for 2024, is indicted today by a Manhattan grand jury. And here to talk about the possible charges in the still sealed indictment is former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, who is also a legal commentator and columnist. His free time, he's a trial lawyer at the Chicago office of Brian Cave Leighton Paisner. What free time, Renato? It's always great to see you. So remind us the legal issues that this case related to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels hinge on.
That's right. So first of all, this is actually a case that hinges on the false statements made in business records of the Trump Organization. In the state of New York, if you make false statements in your business records with the intent to defraud, that is a misdemeanor. If you do that in connection with another crime or in furtherance of another crime, that's a felony. Reports are, we don't know what's in the indictment, I should say, for sure, but reports are that this relates to an alleged campaign finance offense involving hush money payments that were made to Stormy Daniels, who had an alleged relationship, or I should say, encounter with the former president.
And say that is the case, Renato, that it's bumped up to a felony in relation to campaign finance violations. How difficult is it for the Manhattan DA to prove that?
Yeah, I think there's very serious questions about this case, Paris. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the prosecution. First of all, they're going to have to rely on some witnesses who are questionable, right? Like Michael Cohen, who is convicted of lying to Congress, convicted of committing fraud, has started his own podcast that's very critical of Donald Trump and makes a lot of appearances where he attacks the former president. I think there's certainly jurors that would believe he's biased or has an axe to grind. And separate from that, there's a lot of legal challenges here. It's not clear, for example, what the evidence is of intent to defraud. Usually when you want to defraud people, you don't put false statements in your books and records. You actually send those false statements to someone else to get their money or property. It's also questions about whether this is properly a campaign, characterized as a campaign finance expenditure. Usually a payment to someone to keep something island isn't a typical campaign expense. And there was a former case against John Edwards that resulted in an acquittal on similar facts. So very, very significant hurdles for Alvin Bragg and his team.
So this is not going to be an easy case by the looks of it, although that it is under seal. We don't know what's in there, the evidence or the actual charges. How do you think prosecutors in Georgia and Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, in all these cases like the Mar-a-Lago documents case, the January 6th insurrection case, how does this indictment play into what they're doing?
It's a great question. I mean, on one, you'd like to say it doesn't at all, and I do think that they're going to push ahead regardless. I think it does make things a little complicated because, for example, when there is, let's say, an indictment in Fulton County, there will be trial schedules that'll have to be worked out, and ultimately they're going to have to deal with the fact that there will be arguments made that, for example, the charges in another state will impact the jury pool, things along those lines. I will say, Paris, I do think that this really ups the challenge for Trump and his team. In other words, I just went through all the questions and problems, potential problems and hurdles that Alvin Bragg's team faces. Even if they lose, Donald Trump is facing war on multiple fronts. And I'll tell you from personal experience, it is very challenging to defend clients who are facing criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions at the same time.
So certainly a lot of legal bills there. Very quickly, Renato, I know in New York, state law does not allow bail for nonviolent offenses, kind of like the law that's caught up in the courts here in Illinois. But would Trump's incendiary rhetoric around this play into a judge's decision at the arraignment at all?
I don't think so. I think he'll definitely get bail. I don't think those remarks are smart, though, because the judge and the prosecutors are not going to look kindly on them. And as a criminal defendant, you don't want to upset either of those groups of people.
And most likely lawyers are telling the former president not to do things like posting that picture we just saw there. All right, Renato Mariotti, our thanks as always.
Thank you.
And now to Brandis for more of today's top stories.
In Paris, more turmoil within the Chicago Teachers Union. WTTW News has learned that a faction of the union has filed an unfair labor practice charge with the state against CTU. They're calling on the union to cease and desist diverting member dues to political committees supporting Brandon Johnson for mayor. Earlier this month, the union's House of Delegates voted to authorize $8 per member per month, up to $2 million, to go to their political arms supporting Johnson and select aldermanic candidates. Members today say the union violated their duty of fair representation by not getting approval for this from each individual member. And Paris will have more on this on tomorrow's show. Meanwhile, mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson is facing some heat over unpaid city tickets and fines. An opposition research report found Johnson owes the city over $3,000 in unpaid water and sewer charges, as well as $1,000 in unpaid traffic tickets. The report first appeared on the Capitol Facts blog this afternoon. Johnson's campaign responded with a statement, quote, "Like many working and middle-class Chicagoans, the Johnson household has received various fines and fees from the city of Chicago over the years. These fines and fees are on a previously established payment plan and are on schedule to be fully resolved before Brandon Johnson takes office as our next mayor." Of course, that election. And per state law, a new mayor cannot be sworn into office with those outstanding debts. Defense attorneys for the so-called ComEd 4 are trying to make their case that their clients were within the law when they sought to influence former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. The federal government's star witness, Fidel Marquez, spent a fourth day on the witness stand today under cross-examination. Marquez is the former vice president of government affairs at ComEd who cooperated with investigators by secretly recording conversations and phone calls with the defendants in 2019. Former ComEd CEO Ann Pramaggiore, former lobbyist Mike McLean, retired ComEd executive John Hooker, and former ComEd consultant Jay Doherty, seen here, are all charged with bribery, conspiracy, bribery, and willfully falsifying the utilities' books and records. And there's more of this story on our website. And it was a beautiful day for baseball and a beautiful sight if you're a Cubs fan. The Cubs won their home opener 4-0. Pitcher Marcus Stroman threw 6 scoreless innings en route to a breezy 2-hour and 20-minute victory. That truncated length could become the new norm this year as the league put in place new rules, including a time limit in between pitches. Meanwhile, the Sox beat the defending World Series champion Astros in Houston behind a brilliant 10-strikeout performance from Dylan Cease. Final score, Sox 3, Astros 2. Up next, there could be some scary weather headed to the area tomorrow. More on that right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
It was a beautiful day for baseball's return, but tomorrow forecasters are predicting a much different outlook. The National Weather Service says starting around 3 p.m., the Chicago area is expected to see destructive winds and the possibility of several tornadoes. Buckle up. They're warning you to be prepared. And here to explain what all this means for you and how to be prepared is Scott Collis, head of the Geospatial Computing, Innovations, and Sensing Department in the Environmental Sciences Division at Argonne National Laboratory. Scott, that was a job that I went for, you know. Instead I got this job, you got that job. But you're pretty good at this one, too. So tell us what's in store for tomorrow.
Well, as we say in the game, some heavy weather. Some storm systems are going to initiate on the Illinois-Iowa border. They're going to start as individual storm systems, and as they roll across through DeKalb, they're going to form what we call a linear convective system. It's going to move at about 60 miles per hour. It's going to be really hard to predict the exact timing, but you know, if you have plans tomorrow afternoon around that, you know, between 4 and 7 p.m. Time frame, you might want to reconsider it and have a way to get your weather warnings.
Especially be prepared and maybe not be on the road in those hours. So what are the odds we see tornadoes, and what kind of wind gusts are you expecting? The Storm Prediction Center has its outlook for around about a 5% chance of tornadoes within any like 25 mile per hour circle. The wind gusts we can get with some of these storms will be greater than 50 miles per hour and even stronger in some of those storms that will hit. We can actually get up to destructive winds, 75 mile per hour winds, if you happen to get caught in the worst part of those storms. Those are certainly a hurricane force. Do we know at this point, can we pinpoint where the greatest risk of those heavy wind gusts would be? Look, at the moment, the greatest risk is really towards our west as it kind of rolls through that DeKalb area. It's actually going to be a race against sunset. So the faster that storm system moves, the more heat's going to be going into it. These storms, they love heat. The greater risk there's going to be to the Chicago area. And we're going to have some heat in the morning or during the early part of the day tomorrow. Well, that's kind of the good news before the bad. We're going to get into the 60s tomorrow. But don't get used to it, because then the storm hits and then plop, it's going to go straight down. So you do have some tips you just mentioned. Give us a rundown of how people should prepare for storms like this in general. So first of all, make sure you have a plan. Know what you're going to do if you're in a tornado or severe thunderstorm warning. Make a grab kit, a go kit with prescription medicines, first aid kit, clothing, some food, and have a way to get weather warnings from those experts at the National Weather Service. And part of that is having, you know, an old-fashioned radio, right, that's not connected to the internet in case the power goes down. That's right. If the power goes out, and you might be waiting for the all clear, you got no internet, no power, your NOAA weather radio, just Google it, NOAA weather radio is the best thing to have. Is it expected that we would have such unstable weather and an unstable pattern as winter turns into spring this time of year? Well, it's opening day in baseball season. It's around the same time as opening day in severe weather season. It's that time of year when the weather at the surface where we live is kind of more spring-like, a lot warmer. We've still got that cold air above us lingering from winter. That's what storms love. Cold, moist air down below, cold air above. It makes the atmosphere unstable and bubbly. The best time of year, opening day for severe weather, as you put it. I like that. Scott Collis, thanks very much. My pleasure. And now, Brandis, we go back to you.
Paris, after decades serving as a rubber stamp for Chicago mayors, the city council has declared its independence, at least for now, after a raucous debate that turned profane and personal. WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon breaks down what happened and what it means for whoever will be elected Chicago mayor in just 5 days. Heather, so let's start with this. Today's vote was a result of months of efforts to transform the city council into a legislative body independent of the city's mayor. Let's listen to Alderwoman Maria Haddon defend this proposal.
We don't get to wait until we have the exact right conditions. We don't get to do things to perfection, and that is a challenging thing about being in this body and operating in a democracy.
So Heather, what are the new rules?
Well, it creates 28 committees, 9 more than there are right now. And this year, each committee has an average budget of $300,000. So this is not a cheap proposal. But as you said, it is also the first time that the City Council has claimed its own power to name those committee chairs. And those positions come with the power to hire and to spend that sweet budget.
Okay, so the vote was, of course, not without controversy. Here are 2 alder people who voted no and what they had to say.
You can't buy me. I ain't got a price. I ain't no prostitute.
This is a corrupt process. I don't understand how some of y'all sleep at night.
All right, Alderman David Moore and Anthony Beale, why were they so angry?
Well, it was clear that if you did not support this proposal, you were not going to get one of those 28 committee chair positions, which they said was tantamount to vote buying. And they let their colleagues know what they thought about that, as you heard, in no uncertain terms.
Okay, so at one point it looked like the dispute might turn physical. Alderman Brendan Riley confronting Alderman Nicholas Sposato after Sposato said that he would vote against this package of rules. Here's what happened.
No, I'm going to stand up for myself if somebody says bullshit to me. So I have the right to say what I want. That was total bullshit. I'm going to say it. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on it.
Oof. Sposato voted no, even though he is set to remain as chair of the Special Events Committee. Why is that?
Well, the other issue is that, as you said, the runoffs are in 5 days, which means not only do we not know who the next mayor of Chicago is, we don't know who will represent 14 wards. And as you can see there, Alderman Brendan Riley got in Alderman Sposato's face to let him know about it. And you can see Alderman Andre Vasquez coming up and sort of breaking it up. It was a very tense moment because Alderman Sposato says, I love being a committee chair. I love my integrity more, and it was clear Alderman Riley took that to heart.
So there is scheduled to be one more city council meeting before Mayor Lori Lightfoot leaves office. What role did she play in this chaos today?
Well, after that confrontation, she stepped in and said, please act with a modicum of decorum, but beyond that, she performed only ceremonial roles. She leaves office in about a month and a half.
Oh boy. Okay. Now these rules, they have to be ratified by the next city council, and the new mayor takes office on May 15th. What do Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis think about this?
Well, they have both endorsed the concept of a city council that operates independently from them. What that means in practice, I think, is yet to be determined and will be sort of one of the first things that we learn about what Chicago's next mayor will do.
Okay, interesting day in City Council today. Heather Sharon, thank you.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Heather's full story on our website. That's WTTW.com/news. Paris.
Brandis, Chicago's Invest Southwest project is underway in the back of the Yards neighborhood. It's part of Mayor Lightfoot's citywide plan aimed at revitalizing underserved communities. The $58 million development known as United Yards will include retail, a health clinic, brew pub, and affordable housing. Chicago Tonight's Amanda Vinicky and producer Acacia Hernandez spent
this right here was our shopping district, Goldblatt's,
as part of our In Your Neighborhood series, and Amanda is there right now as we speak. Amanda, take it away.
Yeah, Paris, back of the yards is so called because it is in the back of what was the Union Stockyards. For a time, it was the world's largest livestock trading and meat processing center. Now, this area where I'm at is an industrial park, but area developers are hoping to usher in a new area of activity nearby along the 47th Street corridor. There, they want to transform what was the Goldblatt Brothers department store into a storefront of locally owned businesses.
This right here was our shopping district. Goldblatt's had everything. It had, the basement had the stereos, the toys. First floor had the clothes, multiple levels of different, furniture, clothing.
Jesse Iniguez grew up in the back of the yards and is now at the forefront of the neighborhood's reinvention. He owns Back of the Yards Coffee. If all goes as planned, by the end of summer, he'll be selling fresh roasted beans and lattes on the ground floor of the department store he once shopped at as a kid. One of the overall goals for this project? To create jobs.
We're going to help reinvigorate this corner of the neighborhood. Before the pandemic, there was over 4,500 young people out of school and unemployed, just in Back of the Yards alone. And when you compare that to neighborhood violence and youth unemployment, it goes hand in hand. So being able to provide those jobs, it's good for the economy of the neighborhood.
Developer Blackwood Group says the United Yards program will create 300 construction jobs and about 40 permanent ones.
Muchas de las personas que vivimos aquí, los trabajos son a 1 hora, 2 horas, lo digo a nivel personal. Mis familiares que vivimos aquí, conozco que van a los trabajos hasta Bolingbrook o más allá de Bolingbrook.
Lack of job opportunity wasn't always an issue. Immigrant families came here because of the jobs available at Chicago's massive meatpacking industry. But when the slaughterhouses closed, the jobs left too. Esmeralda de la Rosa just hopes these new jobs will be well paid.
Como estamos en el segundo nivel de pobreza, en el barrio como es aquí no tiene uno un trabajo de $20 o más por hora. Es el mínimo que gana uno.
But organizers also worry the project could lead to displacement, noting that development often drives people out of a community.
One of the concerns we have about back of the yards, just like about Bronzeville and everywhere else, is this to benefit the people living here now, or with rising property taxes and pushing people out, will this end up being a really cool thing for other people? And if that may happen, what are we doing now together to slow that gentrification so Esmeralda and others can be here in 10 years?
Businesses that are part of the project must commit to signing a community benefits agreement, a promise they'll pay fair wages, hire locally, and use sustainable practices.
Do I believe that it can be a great thing? Absolutely. But we also hope that they would like to hire locally, consistently buy locally, and also consistently serve the neighborhood at a local fair price.
The first phase of the project includes a brand new building for Somos Monos Cerveceria, a back-of-the-yard startup. For the past 5 years, the owner has been running his beer business through pop-ups and festivals. Now he gets a chance at running a brick-and-mortar operation.
Our vision is to have a place for the community to come and enjoy themselves, to have a place for them that they can call, like, this is our spot.
De La Rosa is looking forward to that possibility, that the project will lead to a heightened sense of belonging for residents.
Como que te sientes confiado en ir a decir voy a tomar un café en tal lugar porque es del señor fulano, qué sé yo, y que los conoce uno y que sabes que te vas a sentir bienvenido en el lugar.
Aniga says it won't be sink or swim for these new local business owners.
They're doing a cohort with these small businesses so that they can learn what are some of the things that they need to do to prepare before opening, and also meeting with them, each specific business, to give them the tools and the resources or guide them in the right direction.
And every neighborhood deserves the support and investments that have been missing for far too long.
With Mayor Lori Lightfoot exiting City Hall, the future of one of her signature programs could be in jeopardy. But Jose Duarte, a Blackwood Group developer, believes Chicago's future mayors will have to continue at least some version of it.
It's going to be hard for them to deny the benefits that the Invest Southwest program brings to these communities. So I suspect that it's going to continue. It might be rebranded, it might be tweaked, it might be improved, but the model of sending those investment dollars over out to the community that need these dollars, I don't think you can turn that back.
And those businesses are set to open on the ground floor of the Goldblatt building by the end of summer. That will include a bakery, a barber shop, and an apparel store that's actually named after Upton Sinclair's The Jungle novel that was based on all of the meatpacking activity and slaughtering that went on here at the Union Stockyards. And don't forget, of course, also back of the yards coffee. The affordable housing component, that's set to come later, likely by the end of the year. With that, Paris, back to you.
The Jungle, a complete American Chicago classic. All right, Amanda, thanks very much. And we're back with more in a moment.
Where have all the young girls gone? That's the theme of Greenhouse Theater Center's newest production, which aims to bring attention to missing and abducted girls. Playwright Mary Bonnet wrote her production, Mia, in response to her experiences working with the Ojibwe tribe in Wisconsin.
Well, First Story Theater's job is to raise awareness and to get people proactive. So if nothing else, I would like them to get proactive. I would like them to volunteer or donate money to different organizations that might support it, to be alert to their surroundings, to listen to their neighbors if their kids, to be that village that we no longer have, really.
Based on real-life stories, Bonnet's production, Mia, explores the realities of a 15-year-old girl, Mia, who has gone missing, and her mother's search to find her. After the production, Bonnet invites guest speakers to share preventative tips, including Dion Trotter with the Cook County Sheriff's Department.
Our Missing Persons Initiative came about, and that was in 2021, coming off COVID. And so basically what we would do is go out to a local department that had open cases that were 3 years old or older and say, hey, we're with the sheriff's office. We see that you have this case. We'd like to add assistance to it. So we didn't necessarily go in and take the case from you, but we offered you a second set of eyes, another layer of resources. We would always say, make yourself a hard target. And in this day and age, especially with young people, most of them walk around with their head down on their phones and things of that nature. So you definitely want to make yourself, be aware, you know, your surroundings. Secondly, in this culture, we do a lot of social media, dating, meeting people we don't really know. Share that information with a friend, somebody close to you. I'm going on this date, I'm going to be at this location. Again, if it's your first time and you're going to ride with someone, maybe you might want to take a screenshot of his license plates and share it with your friends. Hey, this is his license plate. And as long as we can identify with the person, I think the compassion and the help will be there.
And you can catch the production Mia, Where Have All the Young Girls Gone, at the Greenhouse Theater Center through April 9th.
And that is our show for this Thursday night. Please join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Weekend Review and at 10 for Chicago Tonight. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz.
And I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.
Tonight's about Joni.
Join an all-star tribute to Joni Mitchell, recipient of the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song.
Kind of thrilling.
With Brandi Carlile, James Taylor, Annie Lennox, Cyndi Lauper, Herbie Hancock, Ledisi, Graham Nash, Diana Krall, Angelique Kidjo, Marcus Mumford, and a surprise performance by Joni Mitchell.
Friday at 8 on WTTW.
Next time.
It is an extraordinary achievement.
After a miniature village is opened, a man is murdered.
It would appear that poor Joe knew his assailant.
Father Brown thinks Tiny Campbellford may hold the key.
Maybe the murderer is using the model village as a sort of map.
But Inspector Sullivan is back and doesn't want his help.
I see you've lost none of your recklessness, Father.
Father Brown.